most common mistake that a lot of people make, is you seeing some inventories and then you immediately tell yourself, okay, these inventories, they are cheap. I'm going to go ahead and buy them because you feel they are cheap. And because of that, you'll be able to sell them. So without thinking, you go ahead, you splash a lot of money. If you are even spending, let's say, 20 euros, it's not so bad. But sometimes, because these items are so cheap, you just lose all your sense of reasoning. You are so excited, and before you know what's happening, boom, you splash in 300, 400 euros on a set of inventories that, at the end of the day, even though they were cheap, you bring them home, you process them, and you kind of list them and realize that, man, nobody is buying them just because of the way the inventories are. See, this mask right here, these carvings, these are things that if I remember correctly, I think I paid over 400 euros trying to buy them, because I was also very excited when I discovered this category on eBay. I felt like it was something I could pull off. Without thinking, I just went ahead, spent a lot of money buying this stuff. First of all, the fact that I had to list all these items one after the other without any pre-existing listing, like you needed to create the listing all the way from scratch, that was a whole lot of work. It was a whole lot of work. Every little item here, this is one of the reasons why if you want to live in this business, everybody has a different reason for wanting to be a reseller, but I want to be a reseller and not lock myself in and only just sit down and do not. I want to be able to, put in the work one time and have a way of, not doing the work again, but still creating a listing. I'm just going to give you an example. If I have a particular model of laptop, I'm going to put in a lot of work. Sometimes it takes me an hour to set up a very, robust listing on eBay, because I list my items as variations. And because of that, I spent a lot of time, creating the listing, perfecting the photographs. But when I finish making that listing, it is captured. That particular model of laptop is captured for life. If I ever come across that laptop again, all I have to do is just to, pull out all the pictures, the listing template that I used, and in a matter of seconds, that listing is active again. And this I have done over the years. I've gotten different templates for different, models of desktop PCs, and it is just what it is. But these items here, is very unlikely that I'm going to get this particular, item again, the same size, because these are handmade stuff. And because of that, ideally, they look very, very beautiful. These are stuff that I literally thought that because they were really unique stuff, they're going to be selling like wildfire. But boy, I was wrong, because these items, I didn't realize any profit from buying this thing. This was one of the most, mistake I made, trying to discover this business. This was is a major part of my debt pile. I'm not going to say that this is everything, but just 2 days ago, I had to bring out this, this box just for me to be able to make a video. I was like, okay, since I cannot profit from even, selling these items themselves, let me go ahead and share my experience with you guys. Exactly what I'm also doing right here. Just, giving you like an upfront tip that, look, this business is hard enough. It's hard enough to pull off selling stuff online. Don't make it harder by buying things that people do not want. When the world was very, very good, I'm going to say, yes, the world is still good. What I mean is, when things were much easier, people were finding it easy to make money. It wasn't a problem to change your job. But right now, with the whole AI thing and everything going on in the world, people are just so careful how they spend money. They are spending money on items that they can pretty much say, look, this item, I need it to exist. It could be a phone, it could be a shoe, it could be, a laptop, a desktop, a monitor. It could just be anything along that line. Things that, a desktop charger, a phone charger, or, a particular cable that you need to connect your monitor to your PC, because if you do not have, let's say, a HDMI cable, you're not going to be able to work. And people will definitely go out of their way, even if that's all, the money they have, they are going to spend it buying those things that they really, really, really need. This is exactly what's going on right now, you must have noticed a very major shift in your sales. Perhaps you sell items that, like seasonal items, gift items. People are really cutting down on their budget now for gifts, because things have just become very expensive. A few days ago, I was trying to, put gas on my car. You won't believe it, guys. I had to buy, diesel for €2.58. This is unheard of, because if you compare it to a few weeks ago, we used to buy diesel for €1, and 69 cents at the most. And then we're even saying that it was very, very expensive. But right now, for €2 and there about 57, 59 cents, that's expensive. And if you still have to do, the same distance you do every day, you just realize that you're already spending more money on diesel than you normally would. And this is not just diesel alone. That diesel has become very expensive. Benzene, it's just the price or the cost is going to be passed on to every food item you have out there in the supermarket. Very soon, you're going to be seeing that butter has become more expensive, tomatoes has become more expensive, and it's just what it is. And because of that, people are trying to actually see how they can actually reduce their spendings on the things that they do not need. And this mask right here, an example of items that people really need to be comfortable to now say, okay, you know what? I want to go and buy a mask. At the end of the day, I think I also made a mistake in the initial, research I did. I felt like I'll be able to sell this thing for a substantial amount, only for me to, bring these items over, compared after the final cost of, the landing the item. Sometimes this is just whole messed up thing, guys. Sometimes you have an idea. You do not factor in the full cost. Even though you've done your best you factor in the cost of transportation, the cost of buying the item and all that stuff. But sometimes there are some unforeseen expenses that comes up that you would not factor into the transaction. Sometimes you have to, repack the item, and you have to buy additional packaging materials. You have to pay extra for making so many calls in a particular month because you try to buy this thing from. So, there are so many costs that would not factor in. When the things finally arrive and you now factor in all your real costs, you realize that you won't be able to sell it at the prevailing market price. And these things, I kept seeing them for very, very cheap, sometimes for 10, 15 euros. And if I had known that they were so cheap in the beginning, I would not even have, tried this category at all. So you might be out there now, you are thinking, what do I do? What can I sell? And somebody is just, kind of putting in your face some group of inventories, and you are thinking to yourself, oh, they are so cheap. I think this is something I can use to test the waters of eBay or whatever platform on which you sell on. I'm telling you, before you pull the trigger on buying those things, please, guys, I want to beg you, don't lose your money. Please think through it. Think through the item. Take a look. Take a second perspective look. Sleep over the offer and ask yourself, these items that I'm about to buy for 100 or 200 or 300 euros, are they items that people need? And what's the age class of people that even need these items? Are they items that are needed by just, a certain group of people in society? Are they items that are needed by everyone? Ask yourself. And if you see that the item is wanting, it doesn't cut across, every sector of the society, and it's highly season dependent, guys, please think again if you really want to spend money on that inventory. Otherwise, you might just end up buying a whole bunch of inventory that will become a real pain. First of all, listing them. And if you're not careful, your money is going to be stuck, tied down, just like my money is tied down here. I do not know, perhaps, I don't know how I'm going to go ahead and auction some of this stuff, because truly said, there are a lot of decent, beautiful stuff here. But for one reason or the other, first of all, I lost interest in listing this item because the prices was just not what I could, devote my time and my energy. The funny thing is that it takes the same effort in listing a high value item as well as this item here. It takes the same amount of effort. Sometimes if you're not careful, you even spend more time, because this one has other, things that you have to consider, like measurements, the sizes, which you always have to do if you want your potential buyer to have a very good impression of what they are expecting. And if the item is so cheap I'm telling you, people can still return things like this because sometimes the pictures is always different from what people see face to face. And this is just what it is. So if I were to advise you, look for items that are, first of all, needed, an item that will be worth your effort also, because it also doesn't make sense if you, of course, if you are testing things out, you can actually spend a lot of time, doing this thing. But when you have already tested the waters and you realize that this is a business that you want to do, you also need to be able to, factor in the fact that the amount of time you spend needs to be accounted for. You cannot spend 4 hours in trying to make, €2 in profit. Otherwise, it's not going to be a sustainable business model. The amount of time you spend needs to be at par with the profit that you're expecting for a particular transaction. This is one of the beautiful reasons why I tend to lean, into selling electronics, because yes, the profit is there. Of course, you have to do a lot of upfront work. There might be some, some heavy liftings, might be some cleanings, but sometimes you sell a particular piece of electronic, let's say a laptop, you can make as much as 50, 60, 70 euros, even 80 euros up. Making €150 in the electronic category is not unusual. It all depends where you buy the items from. But these kind of items here, it's very unlikely that you're going to make that kind of profit while still putting the same amount of work. I felt like I should share this video with you guys because I understand that somebody out there, trying to, do something new this season, trying to take the bull by the horn. You are trying to, go out there and do something different, not just relying on your 9-to-5 job. You want to be seen, generating some kind of income. I want to help you to minimize your losses, the incidence of you making a mistake that will set you, 1, 2, 3 months, even 1 year back. I just want to, try to minimize that. This is exactly the reason why I am putting this video out there. And if the video helps you, please do me a favor. Don't forget to click on the like button. Consider subscribing to the channel. Until I see you again in the next one. Peace out.